name is Rachel Turner, and I work with Parenting for Faith, a part of BRF. And this seminar is about parenting as a church leader, and specifically how we help our kids negotiate change. As people in church leadership, our children are constantly having to deal with a lot of change, whether it's us moving jobs, whether it's a big change in the way church functions, whether it's us having to transition back from lockdown church into normal church again, whatever that may be. Our kids are constantly dealing with this change process. And I wanted to look today about what that particularly looks like for us as church leaders and our families, as part of ministry families, really. I started on this journey about 2 years ago because my job is to help parents of all shapes and sizes help their kids meet and know God, and help churches raise those parents to feel confident to do that. And as I went around traveling and speaking, both in my own experience and in the experiences of those that I spoke with, we all sort of began to say that, yeah, but our context is different. Parenting as a church leader is unique and weird and has its own set of challenges. I mean, where else do people have to parent in a goldfish bowl with people watching? Where else do we have to parent while their children are present with congregational expectations of what that possibly looks like, of having people in your home, your job in your home, this back and forth of not a 9 to 5, but so much change of times and places and stresses and moves, and it can be incredibly difficult. And there can be a sense of the nightmare stories as parents of church leaders. There are so many church leaders that we hear that story of the church leader's child who goes off the rails, or, it's the pastor's kid syndrome. This sense that that our ministry puts our children at risk, that our ministry could negatively impact our family and could negatively impact our children's spiritual life. And that is a weight that can sit on so many church leaders. And so I did lots of research over the past 2 years and pulled it together into a training day and eventually into a book. The book is called Parenting as a Church Leader, and so much of what we talk about is in here today. And what I wanted to sort of bring together is one circumstance that we may find ourselves in and give us some practical tools of how to use what the research has said. Because the research has said that actually our children can thrive in ministry. Our children don't have to be the cost that we pay. Our children can not only survive being children of church leaders, but can thrive as children of church leaders. And that comes down to how we coach them through it. Now, children have their own choice, they have their own experiences, there's no guarantees, but there are so many things that research has taught us in a way that we can set up our children to succeed, that they may truly experience the joy of being raised in such close proximity to church and leadership, all of the deep benefits of living that close to ministry. There's so much for our children, and we can position them to accept and embrace those benefits and see their lives really, and our lives as a family, really be alive in that. And we found that there are 4 things that church leaders' children need to thrive in this. And so we're going to look at change, and we're going to pull in these things that church leaders' children need as a sort of example of how these 4 things they need interplay with just one circumstance we may find ourselves in, the current one of change. In this situation, coming out of lockdown, but it may be church moves, structure moves, location moves, whatever, how we can help them handle change as church leaders. The first thing that our children need to thrive in any ministry setting, and particularly in this situation of handling change, is they need to feel connected to us. Connection is more than just knowing that we love them. Connection is about feeling that heart-to-heart, holding of lives, that what you feel with your friends, or what you feel with the people who you really trust with your life, that laughter, that joy, that nothing being held back, that mutual sharing of life, that mutual delight, that togetherness of shared memories and free time as well as scheduled time, that connected, you know what connected means. And for our children, they need to feel that connectedness with us. That doesn't necessarily mean they need more time with us. It means they need more connectedness with us. And we can build that into our ministries. The book goes into many different ways. We can build that throughout the day, not just when we're home. And that building in of the connectedness is really important. Anytime that you are looking at a change, I would suggest that one of the first things you do is check your connectedness and how you feel connected to your kids. Well, actually, research says how connected your children feel to you. We may be feeling, super connected, but if your kids are like, it matters their levels of feeling connectedness, not ours. And so check in with your kids. How are they feeling in terms of connectedness? Are they feeling seen and heard and loved? Are they feeling like they get your face when they need it and they want it? Are they feeling like you are eager to be with them and you enjoy it when you are? Are they feeling that you are seeking out their heart and that you are being open and honest with yours? That sense of connection. And we talk in the book about creating a language of connection to help us in those conversations. So you're not just feeling it out, but that we as families can develop this language of talking about how connected we feel and how's it going and how can we twist our lives to make us feel more connected. Because through connection flows influence, through flows vulnerability, flows honesty. And what our kids need from us is the windows into our life to see how ministry impacts us, how we're processing it, and what we're feeling. So when we're looking at change and coming out of lockdown, they don't just get informed about the change, but they get told what's going on in your head and your heart and what ponderings you're having about it, how you're feeling about it. To be able to say, I'm really not sure how church is going to work when we go back, and I'm still wrestling with that. And this is where I am in the middle. What's your opinion? And that sense of open, honest vulnerability is so important when facing a change, because as parents, they look to us to see, how is my parents feeling about this? And what's going on inside of them, so that they are on the inside of the ministry journey and not the outside of the ministry journey. And so you can share those things, those thoughts and feelings. If church conflict is a part of it, one of the most significant research that I think we found was that the importance of talking about church conflict when your children are aware of it. Now, this doesn't mean you inform them. Can you believe what Bertha said to me today? But it means that we're saying, you know what, you may be hearing murmurings of people not sure, not happy, and that's okay. This is how I feel about the conflict. Change is hard for everyone. It's my job to hold people's hands through it. And some people struggle, and they are going to be annoyed with me, and they are going to struggle with that, sometimes really in large amounts. And I'm okay with that. My job is to try to walk with peace through that and hold people's hands as that goes. And that may look a bit conflicting from the outside, but I'm okay with that. And when I get overly stressed, I go hang out with God and he holds me, and it's all right. And so creating that window, letting us look through that, is really helpful for our children, that connection. If we can't maintain that connection, that open communication, the times where we laugh and enjoy, then having those open conversations feel awkward. But you maintain that connection, you can talk about anything. Particularly in the season of going back. If we are looking at emerging out of lockdown, of breaking out of lockdown, our kids are going to be feeling all sorts of worries and fears about what they're going to lose. Sometimes around this connection issue, for many of us, we've had horrific lockdowns, and some of us have had great lockdowns. But in the midst of it, you have had more time with your kids, and through that time, I'm guessing you've improved how you've managed to connect with your children. And our children may be experiencing a fear of losing that. You may want to have conversations about what have we found precious about our connection times. during this lockdown? What have we found that has worked for us? It could be the bedtimes, or it could be that when you get off of a Zoom call, you come out and you play Uno with your kid. What is it that makes your kid feel connected to you? And you can ask them about it and have those conversations. Say, okay, we don't want to lose that. How can we articulate how we feel as a family? So if we feel like we're faltering on our connection when, out of lockdown ends, that we can say, whoa, we're losing our connection, and that's important, to grab it back. Have those connection conversations. The second thing that our children need from us to thrive in all ministry situations, but particularly applied to change, is they need to feel prioritized. Now, we hear that and we hear boundaries, work-life balance, and that is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the feeling like they don't have to compete with the church for your attention and your love. That sense of knowing that they are precious to you and that you make choices proactively to protect and defend their place in your life. And so in this season, to be able to make those choices, and some of us are trying to struggle with that in terms of Zoom calls and phone calls and that back and forth and back and forth and back and forth of how ministry life intrudes upon our world. And in the book, we have many chapters on how to negotiate this sense of helping our kids know that they are important and valuable to us without having to make every choice that means you're available 100% of the time and you never go to church. But how do we hold their prioritization and let them know that they are prioritized? And sometimes that makes sacrifice, and a lot of times that just means in how we're phrasing things, how we're communicating. But this prioritization, as we emerge out of lockdown, our children are going to have questions about, are we going to go back to the way it was? Is it going to be as busy? Is there going to be a huge amount of need? Are you going to be so busy trying to reset it up that I'm going to lose you for weeks? And if so, do you understand how that feels? And if not, how are you going to protect us? And they have these questions of knowing that you are thinking about it. And so as you think about what it comes back out, as you come back out, to sit down with your kids and say, I always want you to feel like you have me and that I'm with you. And we're going to feel weird because I'm going to be gone more, or it's going to look different because it's a big ramp up. And so I want to make sure that our precious times are protected, or that you know that you can call me anytime. Let's get 5 texts. I demand 5 texts a day, or however you want to create that sense that they are there with you. And if you really want to delve into this is something that has historically been something that your children have struggled with, there's a lot of really important tools that are in the book to help you take that forward. But in this season, you might want to ask your kids things like, what will you feel stolen from you when I go back? Or when school starts, when school starts, when church work starts, when our lives rechange, how can we make sure that we know that we are family comes for, well, in our family, we say family comes second because God comes first. God comes first, family comes second. That sense of priority and protection of each other's place in your life. What do your kids want to hear from you and know from you? And what do you want to know from them? They're going to go back to busy life, and your teenagers are going to, want to hang out with everybody else. And for them to know that you need to know that their priority in your life is a really important conversation as well. So have that prioritized conversation. The third thing is covered. Our kids need to feel covered. In the general sense, that's about their privacy. That's about their having to hold confidential information. That's about them dealing with the congregational expectations and parenting in a goldfish bowl. There's so much within this covered issue within the book. But I think in this particular situation, in terms of change, our kids need to feel that they will not be exposed. Feeling exposed as a church leader's child is something that they have to cope with a lot and can make them distance themselves from the church. And if we want our children to feel powerful as members of a congregation, as individuals within a body of Christ, we've got to give them back their stories and their ability to say for themselves what they're feeling and thinking, which means not speaking for them, not putting them in the limelight, not drawing attention to them and giving them a spotlight. in which they feel like their ability to be hidden and to have privacy is exposed. We want to cover them. And so in this situation, everyone's going to be seeing each other again. People are going to be asking you, how are the kids doing? How do they cope with lockdown? How are they feeling? And having an answer for that you may want to work out with your family. We're all doing great, or we're all looking forward to it. How can you say something that doesn't say, well, actually, John was on the edge of a total and complete meltdown and he was screaming all the time. And, but my 14-year-old was not that bad. And, I was expecting it to be horrific. And actually, how do you cover their privacy so that their time of struggle or their time of success or their time of being vulnerable with you isn't just splayed for everybody, but how can you authentically say, I had a really hard time, and these are the things I liked about lockdown. These are the things I didn't like about it. And the kids had their own journey. How was yours? And to just cover them so that they don't feel like all those private, beautiful moments are splattered for everyone to see. So how do we protect their privacy to do that? How do we protect their privacy to come out of whatever it was? For some of our children, they've been very public on our church online. Some of our kids have been completely hidden, and they may have different emotions about that. The kids who've been completely, sitting on our laps and next to us all the time are going to emerge into life with a lot of people who feel like they know them very well. And they're going to have to navigate what it feels like to be, minorly famous within your church, and that may feel overwhelming to your kids. So to prep them with how everyone may feel towards them because they've been seen for so long, and the heart to them, and how do they want to reply, and coaching them through how they might want to respond if people make comments about what they were like online. For your children who are hidden, they may be dreading coming back and feeling like everyone can see them again, and recognizing that, affirming that, and talking about how they can negotiate that, what phrases they can have. You might want to role play, all sorts of things. Of just thinking about how you can cover them and protect them as they come out. And the last thing is about helping them feel empowered. Our children need to feel connected to us. They need to feel prioritized in our lives, and not that they're in a competition of needs with our congregation. They need to feel covered, and that they feel covered, and that we as parents have figured out how to parent in a goldfish bowl and monitor our hearts in that way. The fourth thing is they need to feel empowered in their own spiritual journey. Our kids are children of the living God and members of our congregation. And that is a powerful thing to be a member of the body of Christ, to be loved by a body of people. That is so valuable. And our children need to be empowered like everyone else to go on their own faith journey and to be part of the church as themselves. And there are chapter upon chapters of exploring that within the book, but in this circumstance, they are still, like everyone else, trying to figure out what church feels like for them. You as a parent have been discipling them at home in your normal journey of creating windows into your life and framing for them COVID and helping unwind their wrong views of God and helping them chat and catch and encounter God for themselves and surfing the waves of their interest, all the things we talk about in parenting for faith. You have been doing that as a parent, and now our children are emerging, and we're going to be helping them engage with church more. We've helped them engage online. How can we help them re-enter the church body as themselves? How can we help their individual lives sort of go on that journey of faith and disciple them? But also, how can we help disciple their next step going into church? And that may be that they have the power to figure out how they want to refit in. Have they enjoyed being off of church? Many of our church leaders' kids are like, it's amazing. I can be in my pajamas and I'm not in church for 4 hours on a Sunday. And if we come out of lockdown and break out of this, and now we're back to, those patterns of time requirements and what it feels like to be the church leader's child, and how we talk about that. And there's so much that then will rise up within them. And we can begin to say, well, actually, this is a great moment to say, how do you want to be a congregant in this situation? Where do you want to serve? How do you want to express your calling? Where do you meet with God most in this place? Where are you needed in this place? How can we as a family encounter God together? And how can we as a family be our little part of loving others? And how can I create space for you to worship better? There have been so many kids who said, actually, in this season, I've discovered that I really like not being seen when I worship. And so to sit with your family and say, okay, maybe sitting at the front isn't great to help my 10-year-old actually sing to God and encounter him. So we're going to start sitting in the back during worship so my kid doesn't feel watched. To really have a good conversation of saying, how do we want to encounter God? Session 8 of the Parenting for Faith course it's free on the parentingforfaith.org website, is all about helping our kids engage with church. And you might want to look at that session and just process, how do I want to help my kid engage with church as a human being and as a church leader? What have we been doing that has actually been working against that? How can I help you love the church and be part of it better? Have those conversations. It's so interesting. In this season, and helping them negotiate change and helping them negotiate lockdown. But on the whole, if you can just remember, help your kids feel connected to you. In the book, we go into what that means when you're working from home and when you're trying to parent in a goldfish bowl and all of the congregational expectations and the church leader hat and the parent hat. And we go into all of that. But for now, if you can just remember, help your kid feel connected to you in deep and powerful ways. Make them feel prioritized so that they know their place in your life is secure. Help them feel covered, that they have agency and privacy and not having to hold the weight of the congregation's secrets on their shoulders, but that they have the freedom to be themselves, hidden and able to share their stories. Would be so good for them, and to empower them on their individual faith journey and help them find their place as a congregant. Those 4 things you're going to do massively in order to help your kids thrive. We're going to have some follow-up sessions to this. I think on our parentingforfaith.org page, we're going to have training day videos. There's 4 one-hour sessions that cover a lot of these topics in much more detail, with specific tools and tips and skills to learn in that. Or you can grab this book and read at your own leisure. But we are here for you to help you. Your kids absolutely can flourish in this season. And be blessed and know that God has one wonderful call for you to be a parent and a church leader at the same time.